Go ahead, tell me. Yeah, so that
These two things, we're hoping that we
No, yeah, that's a good question.
it's like fake news. I'm so excited.
Good evening, everyone. Meeting called to order. The time is 7 p.m. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Business Administrator Board Secretary has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Park?
Here.
Mr. Clavijo?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Ms. Erentraut?
Here.
Dr. Morrell?
Present.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Shortway?
Here.
Mr. Totaro?
Present.
Mrs. Scott?
Here. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity early on the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment when the citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and or directly related to the operations of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or the presiding officer and shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised, but will provide a response if and when appropriate. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during this public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for the statements that they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Public be heard, agenda items only. Seeing as we have no public members in attendance, we will move to the budget discussion. I would like to thank the board for its flexibility in the meeting date. Mr. Spirito, Dr. Spirito and I felt it was very important that every member was here to engage in this discussion. I guess so. Public be heard again? Oh, no. Board, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you all for your time tonight. We thought it would be helpful if we started tonight by reviewing some of the historic cost comparisons, just to give us an idea of kind of how where we are.
Yes, please, if you don't mind. Thank you. On behalf of the Finance Committee, as a point of reference, the Finance Committee is made up of our Business Administrator, Cheryl Ambrose, our Superintendent, Dr. Spirito, with us since 2015, Anthony Palouse, Finance Industry Professional, Mike Doyle, former Board President, our current Board President, Abby Goff, Board Member for 10 years, and myself, also Finance Industry Professional. Been part of the Finance Committee since the beginning of my tenure, 10 years ago. Putting together the district budget is similar to putting together a household budget in the sense that revenues and liabilities are reviewed. On the revenue side, because we are not a for-profit institution, there are very few income streams. We rely mostly on state aid, a tax levy, and the occasional grant we may be awarded. On the liability side, they are scrutinized for efficiencies and cuts if needed to make the bottom line work. The goal being to deliver a quality education system for the benefit of our students and real estate property values while respecting the taxpayer. Over the last years, our average tax levy has been 2.5% or 2.2%, not counting the referendum year. Last year's increase was 1.86%. The future years, however, are looking uncertain. Our statutory cap is of 2% or about $800,000. Big ticket items are creating unsustainable stress on our budgets. These include health benefit increments. Last year, it increased by 25%, and this coming year, it is projected at an additional 15%. Also, PCTI tuitions costs have gone up an average of 11% over the last 5 years. The projected cost for this coming year is at an additional 13%. Since the 2018-2019 school year, the tuition cost alone, not counting transportation, has gone up 118% from $980,000 to $2.1 million. Another big ticket item is school security. It's gone up 65% since 2018 from $148,000 to $246,000. The math does not add up. Our 2% cap equates to $353,353,000. And just between the health benefit increments and the PCTI tuition increment, not counting transportation, we are at $1.3 million, almost $500,000 short before anything else gets accounted for. Be mindful that the district is made up of approximately 2,400 students, 400 staff members, 3 elementary schools, middle school, a high school with a sports complex, barricade, whole program, and central office. To make the numbers work this year, we are needing to cut at least close to $1.5 million. Assuming we utilize the health credit adjustment this year, there is no bank cap for next year, and ESSER funding is going away. While we're not alone in this predicament, something needs to be done by our legislators at the county and state level. The purpose of sharing this information is to provide a clear picture of where we stand at this time. We're doing what we can from our end, are open to suggestions, and appreciate your continued support. I don't want to steal thunder, but thank you.
Piggyback on that, what's up on the screen are the tuitions over the last several years. And you can see, obviously, the increase that has come year over year. So we've discussed at this level increase in enrollment at PCTI on many occasions. But this also shows you the special ed district growth, the charter school growth, and all of that impacts what we, as a school district, have to pay. So since the 2018-19 school year, which was the last school year prior to the pandemic, our increase is almost $2 million just for tuition. So again, when you think about what a 2% tax levy increase is, that essentially, as we talked about last year, covers a 3% contractual increase in salaries. So all these other increases are things that we have to absorb. And we absorb them in historical past through breakage, through things like last year, well, we had budgeted for health benefits and then they gave us, 1 month health benefit premium holiday. Those kind of things allow us to then cover other costs. And that's where money gets moved around in the adjusted budget. But if you look at the next slide, which is transportation, which is related obviously to our tuition, because in transportation we have to get these students to all of these placements, whether it be PCTI or the out-of-district placements. In the charter schools, although we don't bus them, we are obligated to pay non-public transportation. So you can see there that in the projected 23-24, the decrease is not truly a decrease. It's because we're using our ESSER funds to offset these costs. So that's obviously not a sustainable thing, but it will help us get through the year and give us an opportunity to try to find ways to possibly either tier routes, share routes with other districts, some strategies that we have out there. The next slide is for security. As we know, after the pandemic, we've also seen some behavioral concerns that have increased our security in the various schools. So that security is probably about a 67% increase over the last 5 years. The reimbursement that we get from the town hasn't changed. So that's a real cost to the district. And then the final slide that I have is the health benefits itself, which we also have talked about since July when they announced that they would be doing a 15% increase as of January 1st. So what does that actually mean to us? December of 2022 invoice was $513,068.65 just for our state health benefits. As of January, it was $585,511.50. So a $72,442.85 increase in 1 month. That's the monthly increase in this current fiscal year. that increase is then going to increase 15% more projected for January 2024. So that is extraordinary. And then what's not also in that figure is the decrease in employee health benefit contribution for all the people that switched from the traditional plan that reimbursed based on premium to the New Jersey Educator plan that reimburses based on salary. So clearly salaries don't increase the way that benefits are increasing. So the cost to the district is staggering. And we were able in this school year to handle that. But on a year-over-year basis, the reason you see like that dip down to the $5 million last year is because they gave us a 1-month premium holiday. So last year we had budgeted roughly $6 million, and then we spent, it's probably closer to 5-7 maybe. We spent 5, obviously the rest got to be used somewhere else. The increase that you see year over year is not necessarily 23% increase on what was budgeted, right? It's on what was spent. That's what you're seeing there. So on a budgeted basis, yeah, it levels out to more like a 15% increase for next year. You'll probably see a slightly less increment in the 24-25 budget. So as I said, it's kind of an unprecedented increase.
If you don't mind, if you could just explain, or just for my own education, but going back to tuition for a second, if you can expand upon a little bit of those extraordinary increases as it pertains to the PCTI component, as well as the special ed out of district. Obviously, those increases are pretty significant in value. If you can just maybe expand a little bit more, just so everybody understands as to why.
So just in
Is your microphone on?
yes.
Okay, because the whatever that thing is. Oh, is it the machine on the bottom by you,
I
Anthony?
think it's up.
Yeah,
I think it's the pen.
Depends.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think it's that. I think it's by your
You can shut that off.
It's really
too, if you
loud.
want to shut that off.
Sorry.
Just turn it off. There's a
No,
plug
I'm
right
trying
in
so
front.
hard to listen to you, but that's distracting.
Well, that's because I'm also looking at that screen,
Oh, okay.
so that's probably some of it
Right.
too.
That's not what it
Is
is.
it off?
Dial,
Yeah.
dial.
No, just turn it off. There's a button in front.
I push the button that says off and it's...
Yeah, that's off.
Turn the dial to the left, either to the
Good
other,
job.
turn the dial.
Yeah, the lights.
So much better. Okay.
What?
Get in trouble.
Okay, so on the PCTI, in the current year, 22-23, what we budgeted was 161 regular ed students and 3 special ed students. The budget for this year was $1,886,091. As you know, that after the state certifies tuition rates, schools can either give you an invoice or a credit for the prior school years. So this year we got a credit for the 2021 school year, I believe it was, which is why the adjusted budget is $1,000,008. So slightly less than what we had budgeted this year. Next year's budget, the $2,136,000, is 192 students at the decreased tuition rate of $10,864. They decreased it by $100. And 3 special ed students, again, at a decreased rate of $16,829. So 31 students more than last year. That's a huge increase in PCTI. And then as far as the special ed out of district, the projection of $2,006,000 is 3 students at other LEAs, meaning public schools, 8 students at Bergen County Special Service Programs, and 26 students at private schools for the disabled.
What was that last number?
26 students at private schools for the disabled.
Thank you.
So you'll know, like if you look back in the agendas, I think we approved 3 new students in January. that went out of district, one in February, there will be another one on the March agenda. So they're real placements. They're not
No, absolutely.
placeholders of,
I just wanted to point out for the public too, that this represents almost 45% to 50% of the overall value, right, of the projected increase. If you look at it from that perspective, right, $700,000. Majority being PCTF.
and then even the charter schools have basically doubled the enrollment in charter schools over the last 5 years.
Ms. Ambrose, can I
Yes.
ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
It's relating to the transportation, which you do have the slide up there, but I'm also looking at the historical cost comparison. So I see that the projected cost is a little under $2.1 million, but about 400,000 or so is you're utilizing the Art ESSER funds. So if I were to put that money in there, it would appear that the transportation projection is the same amount as the adjusted. Should the projection have been more what the adjusted transportation cost is?
So we're hoping that we can keep transportation next year from growing further. We're hoping that we'll be able to tier some routes and find some efficiency in that. So we're projecting based on that. But, you know, we have to hold back the increase somewhere. And that's where we feel like we'll be able to make gains.
Got it, okay. And also a follow-up question. You had mentioned, I'm trying to remember where it was, which slide you security. In the security slide, if you can speak a little bit more about this, you mentioned, you made a comment something about security increased costs, but then you said something about the town's contribution.
So it's my understanding that back somewhere around 2018-19, maybe the 19-20 school year, that when our costs were roughly $120,000, the town was reimbursing $60,000. They're still reimbursing $60,000.
So the town's contribution has not been modified or increased to reflect our growing needs, our security needs?
Correct.
That the community have expressed that they want, and I guess a recent social media post as well.
So we have been receiving the $60,000. The numbers that I reported to you are net of the reimbursement.
Okay, I just wanted that to be known publicly.
Could I just add something to that?
Sure.
And, well, I might be wrong, but point of clarification, the amount for security does not include the additional costs we incur as far as uniforms, equipment, walkie-talkies. That's a separate number?
It's in there.
It's included in that number?
It should be in there. It should be all of the
Not that
security
that's
course.
a large number, but
It should be in there.
it's in there?
Let's take a look about there.
I could tell you that the radios, they're typically part of the school's budget because the school will purchase radios for the school itself. So the radios themselves might, I can tell you, are usually part of the actual school's budget because they'll purchase radios for all the administrators and they'll purchase them together. So it may not be part of the individual line of that security budget.
This is your salary. So without the reimbursement, is what you're saying.
That's that, right.
Without that reimbursement.
These
Right.
ancillary items.
But this is after the reimbursement. This is net of your reimbursement. This number, the 219, is net of your reimbursement.
Right, but this number isn't in here before we get to that. That's what I'm saying. It's okay, I just, for my own.
I'll send you a separate one, but yes.
Okay.
It should all be in there.
One more question, I apologize to my colleagues, I swear it's the last one. Maybe.
The point of being here.
Can you talk a little bit about if the district has an emergency reserve, and forgive me if I have a misunderstanding about this. If you have an emergency reserve, you can tap into that if you have your healthcare costs above 4%, or you can use it or something like that. I might be totally saying this
There
wrong.
is an emergency reserve.
Okay.
Available to districts. We do not have an emergency reserve. it is my understanding that it is extremely difficult to withdraw money from. I believe you need the commissioner's approval. So it has never been recommended to me to do an emergency reserve.
We don't have any, so.
But I mean, it's never been recommended in any district that I've been in that they put money into an emergency reserve, because I think there is a very real concern about what you deem to be an emergency and what someone else deems to be an emergency.
Okay, thank you.
So if we don't have any more questions on the historical costs, we move forward to the projections in the 23-24 budget. Before we start going line by line, I just wanted to say that we have developed this preliminary budget and spoke with Finance Committee last month when we had roughly a $2.4 million deficit. So although we are asking the board and the taxpayers to support us with giving the extra $736,000 of healthcare adjustment, it still left over $1.4 million for us to cut. And in doing that, we've worked with administration, collaborated, and tried to reduce our costs in a very strategic and deliberate manner. We've found ways, hopefully, to find some efficiencies, including reductions in staff, which will be primarily through attrition. We reallocated $500,000 of the ARP ESSER funds, but as you'll remember, when we did the ARP ESSER application, we anticipated $880,000 for mechanical HVAC replacement, which we were successful finding funding for that earlier this year through the New Jersey Clean Energy Program. So all of the reductions and things that we've been having to do to get this budget to balance tonight have been very deliberate to not interrupt instruction and to be the least disruptive for the students. So that said, we can start talking about the revenues. And on that first page that you'll see, the very first line item is your local tax levy. So we are proposing a local tax levy of $42,727,653. That is your 2%, the $823,000 that Mr. Clavijo referenced earlier, and the $736,655, the healthcare adjustment. We've increased our projections for tuition because we expect to raise the tuition that we're charging for Bear Cave for students that we receive. We've increased our projection on interest from our investments, a little bit on gate receipts, and you'll see that we've increased significantly over what was initially budgeted this year, the miscellaneous. So even though it looks like significantly less than what we're showing as adjusted this year, that $320,826 this year includes some extraordinary one-time things. We got our FEMA funding that we had an application for a couple of years out there. There was a $36,000, I believe it was, rebate from PCTI earlier this year. And Tamer and I had worked on getting $140,000 of reimbursement from ECF, which is the Connectivity Fund, for the Chromebooks. And then after miscellaneous are all of the state aid figures. We got a $345,000 increase in categorical special ed and no increase in any other state aid. But we are decreasing the budgeted fund balance. So as we spoke about in January at Finance Committee, we need to start bringing the budgeted fund balance down. But budgeted fund balance is something that gets funded by savings and generating excess surplus, which as budgets get tighter and tighter, it's less likely that you'll be able to do. So we had used $927,208 last year because we believed a lot of the increases that we saw were temporary. We thought we would have more success this year in being able to have less tuitions, less transportation costs, and that, you know, it might have slowed a little bit in the increase, but it's still increasing. So we are proposing to decrease that number to something that has to keep starting to step down. Because otherwise, if you don't step it down, you'll face potential budget gap in a future year. The other funds that are all there, the Fund 20, that's all your grants that you get, which is, you know, basically a pass-through. So anything that you get in a grant is, it's kind of standalone budget. It doesn't affect the current operating. And then the last page is debt service.
Cheryl, before we go to that last page, just line 14, just for something I haven't confirmed today, and I think it's important that all the board members know, they may know already, but more so for the public. Line 14, categorical security aid at $339,000. That in no way, shape, or form supports our security budget, right? That means it goes towards something else, is that correct?
Yeah.
Doesn't
So-
pay our salaries for our security personnel.
No, it's just,
Thank you.
Cheryl, I have a question about lines 44 and 45. The Title III and Title III immigrant federal funding. I know through several meetings, even curriculum and instruction and reports I think shared by Dr. Trebona, that there has been an increase in English learning, I don't want to say it wrong, or multi-language learners.
Yes.
And then I noticed that, like, it's been a significant increase, I believe, in our district.
Yes.
But is there any way that we can possibly, I don't know, again, just reading a little bit, doing research about that, about the federal funding for that, shouldn't it should have increased based on our number of students, or is there any way that we can revisit that with, I don't know if it's an application process?
it's not an application process per se.
Mhm.
Like, it's not something that, like the grants that we've done.
Mhm.
But yes, I agree that we've had an increase, we should
Yeah.
get, but as I said earlier, it's also a pass-through kind of, right? So we hope to get more money than what's actually being budgeted.
Sure. It seems like very detailed of how we classify everything based on curriculum and instruction and everything. And
Yeah, I believe they
that
take a lot of
formula
it from
based
a lot of
on-
the reporting that we do,
Mhm.
like from NJ Smart and from the different reports that we do, and
Mhm.
calculate it from that. But I will tell you that I got something from the US Census that indicates that, so that this was done in 2020, that we have less poverty, less than we had, which doesn't also seem correct to me. And that's a very difficult thing to challenge,
Yeah.
you know, because they took this census in the middle of the pandemic. And, because I already questioned that, if we have, you know, a huge increase in free and reduced lunch applications and all of these various things, how can that be decreasing? But, you know, I don't have an answer for that. All I can tell you is we try to get every dollar that we can get.
Sure, I can imagine. It just, like, when you read the federal sites about it, it makes sense that we should be getting more, especially because of the increase that we know. It's just frustrating that we don't have it.
Well, and the thing, as I said, I mean, it is a pass-through, but it's not going to, even if we got a significant amount more,
Sure.
it would be great in that you could buy supplies, or you could buy something,
Mhm.
a one-time thing. It's not gonna help us on a recurring cost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the concern, like, if you start putting salaries and all into some of the title, and then you lose some of that funding, you have to then bring it back into your general budget, which is a very hard thing to do if you're already tight. So,
Ms. Ambrose, can you
Thank you.
expand on that?
of course.
So, Ms. Aaron, the Title III funds, it's supposed to be in addition to, there's rules to the use of the funds. So Title III funds cannot be utilized to provide ESL services that must be provided by the local school district budget. So those would just be in addition to. So the district would have to first satisfy its English language services needs with the local budget, and then supplement that with the federal funds, yeah.
Thank you so much.
So if there's no other questions on revenue, we can move to the expenditures. I know it's a very small print. I was trying not to have it be hundreds of pages. If you want it up on the screen, we could probably do that if that makes it easier for everybody. But I'm not gonna go through line by line because I feel like when you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. You know, you can see it kind of mirrors what we talked about in historical costs, right? An increase in the tuition. You can see that we've decreased everywhere that we can, administrative costs and facilities. You know, we're trying, as I said earlier, to have the least impact to the classroom. Yes.
I have questions about line items number 9 and 10. The salary re-registration, does that mean we're not doing re-registration? It wasn't clear to me.
So we had originally budgeted that for the 23-24.
Okay.
And in order to just take a little bit of pressure off of that budget, we moved it to June, which puts it into the 22-23 school year.
And what does re-registration mean? That means
So we are gonna have
from
100%.
each, like from 5th grade to 6th grade?
We're gonna have 100% re-registration of every student in the district
Got it, and that'll be in June,
in June.
as opposed to what was originally planned for?
Summer?
We did it in July, the first, when we did it 5 or 6 years ago, we ran it in
Oh, so it was
July.
like the stipend, summer pay, additional
Right.
work?
So we hired staff to run that,
Okay.
do the re-registration, we had administrative assistants and people run it. So we're gonna just move it to June, so we can
While people are doing the regular work?
do it right at the end of the school year.
Got it,
And we
okay.
can, you know, use some of the money from this year's budget as opposed to incorporating it in next year's.
Got it.
It'll also probably be stipended because it'll be after hours.
Okay.
And it'll probably be like after the school year closes, you know, so if teachers are helping out or whatever. But it moves it to this cost center this year,
All right,
and then anything after July 1st becomes next year's budget.
got it. Thank you.
Are any other questions on page 1? Page 2?
I'll just make a comment on page 2 under, it looks like it's on line 79. So that comment is not necessarily supposed to be about the miscellaneous expense. It was supposed to be about the category in itself, but if I put it next to the 4.31% increase, it cut off the page. So, but just to explain that, so it's being categorized as a child study team cost because we hired someone in a BCPA, which is not a certificated staff member. What was originally intended for this budget of the 22-23 school year was to hire a behaviorist, which would be a teaching certificate, and that would be under a different code. We're on page 3. You can see significant decreases in professional development because we'll be able to use some of the learning acceleration grant for that and Title II for that. Decreases in superintendent supplies, which is an administrative cost. Decreases in My Cost Center, which is also an administrative cost. If there's no questions on that, we can go to the next page.
I'm sorry, just one thing. I don't know if this has been discussed. I think I might have mentioned it to Dr. Tribona before, but I think it's because how the district utilizes its Title IV, but you can transfer your entire Title IV amount into your Title II. That's allowable.
Historically, you know, I mean, I've only been here 18 months,
Yeah.
but in that time, we've had more than enough Title II for professional development, and then came all of the federal funds through our BESSER and everything that had a professional development.
Right.
component. And right now, we're using the Title IV for things like Heroes and Cool Kids.
Right,
Those
right.
extra.
That's why I remember Dr. Tribona, that actually, the district is utilizing those funds for that. Okay.
It's okay, we're writing as we go. So page 4 is note line items 158 through 211.
So I'll mention just in the maintenance budget, which is 11,002,261, it looks like a $300,000 decrease, but it really is not, because that includes, like, the comparison is to the adjusted budget of this year, and the adjusted budget of this year included the withdrawal from maintenance reserve that we took. So really budgeted more on track with where we are today. Page 5.
Yeah, page 5, line items 212 through 265. I have a couple questions on this one.
Okay.
Ms. Ambrose. Line item 238, it says probably contractual service PCTI parent contribution?
No, this is,
I slaughtered it.
so 11,00270 is transportation.
Okay,
So this is PCTI busing. It's the contracted
okay.
PCTI busing.
So the additional $89,000 would be an additional cost.
Yeah, so this year, because we have 195
We
students,
do 3 buses.
we need a 4th bus.
And I'd just like to point out to the public who does not have the spreadsheet in front of them, that there is a line item in here which outlines medical benefits, and the additional increase, though it's been said, is $969,982. It's $1 million in one line item for increase alone, making the total for the budgeted impacts $6,808,433.
So just to go back to the historical cost model that we were looking at earlier, because I think, I have my spreadsheet, right? Because we projected on that historical cost 7.3 million, but that health benefits of the historical cost includes dental, vision, things that are not just state health benefits. The line item that Mrs. Goff just referred to is strictly state health benefits.
So if I could make a comment, for the benefit of the public, as far as the health benefits, that's the only option available to us. We've already shopped, broker shopped it around, and there is no other option. That's the only option available. So that's the best available option.
Well, it is the only option.
It is the
So
only-
as we spoke about in July, when the state announced that they were going to have a 30% increase over 2 years, we immediately asked for our experience rate. We gave that to Brown & Brown, which is our health broker, to put it out to any and all insurance companies. But because the experience rate was unfavorable, nobody would make us an offer to provide health benefits for us.
Thank you.
And the next page is line items 2626 to 319. And this is all basically instruction.
Just because we're looking at it. Line item 302.
Telecom, cable, vision, light pack.
Seems like a one-time larger increase, right?
Well, last year we discovered that they had been overcharging us. So we got a credit, which then reduced some of last year's and the earlier part of this year, but that credit is going away now. So it should level out. So the 39,000 like that is because of the credit.
Got it.
Can you clarify a little bit some of the reductions in the class coverage, some of those lines?
So we're hoping. We've had an extraordinary increase in class coverage costs. It's just hopeful that we can get subs next year.
That's for somebody who's
Right.
absent and there wasn't a
Right.
substitute teacher.
Because we haven't been able to get substitutes, we're just paying unprecedented amount. We have to give them a stipend, right, if they're covering another class, but yeah, this is just.
What is the,
$34, I think.
That's-
Yeah, I wanna
what's
say
in
it's
the
like
contract?
It's
$34.77
$34, something like that,
something,
for
yeah.
to cover a class, each period you cover
we're
a class.
paying that if they're covering a class during their prep or
Yes.
just, okay. So we're paying teachers because we are asking teachers to cover another teachers who's absent
Correct,
because we don't have a substitute teacher, and we're asking them to cover it during their prep time.
correct.
Because if they had a duty,
Different story.
different story, okay.
Yeah, a lot of these costs, as you are alluding to, is because there is this shortage and not being able to get subs, not being able to get people to do what normally, like even the lunch aides, even all those kind of things, bus aides. It's difficult to find people that will work for, you know, a little bit more than minimum wage, maybe at those levels.
You're paying a premium.
Yeah.
Well, and then, you know, I mean, it's been talked about at the national level, the historic bus driver shortage and teacher crisis. And, I mean, this is just, you're seeing it all in numbers, but that's really what's behind everything. So if we're moving to the next page, it's line items 320 to 373. At these numbers, you're really just looking at all instructions.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ambrose, going back to page 7, line item 353, LLD professional services. It looked like 2 years ago, oh no,
Sorry,
the
what line item?
353. There was a big charge, $278,000.
That's the para prices that we had this
Okay.
summer, and we had to hire pro-para,
Okay.
right? So
That was
that's
our
part of,
professional services.
yeah, so we had, because we couldn't get paras in the classroom, we had to go to an outside agency and
Mhm.
hire paraprofessionals. And some of their services are covered there, some are served, you know, covered to like 11000217, whatever, a couple different places that we spread it out, depending upon what classroom they were in and what students they were with. So we are hopeful that that goes away, we get back to our own employees.
Mhm. That's crazy, and that was just from the summer.
Well, no, I mean, it's the school year, but
The school year.
it started
It
in the
started in the
summer.
summer.
But yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary
Yeah.
cost. But we had to, we couldn't run the programs.
Right.
You know, we had no choice, the people were not taking the jobs, and we had to run summer school, and then we had to open, you know, and have certain
do
number of
remember.
paras in the class. And even to that point, you know, in the summer, we raised the part-time paraprofessional rate. So that alone probably added another $100,000 to the
Yeah.
budget. And the other thing that we haven't talked about that is part of this too, is that part of the referendum was for a one-to-one Chromebook device, which was fantastic considering it was on the eve of the pandemic when everybody went to virtual instruction. But laptops for the staff and Chromebooks for the students have to be replenished on a very regular basis. And those costs weren't in budgets 5 years ago. And then there's an additional cost to the infrastructure of the network to support all these extra devices. So those are just costs that we didn't even talk about in the historical, but I'm gonna say probably between laptops, Chromebooks, and the extra cost of the network is easily $250,000 to $300,000. So, I mean, it's not surprising. I think it's just overwhelming when it's all in one place and you see it. So on that next page is line 374 to 427.
Ms. Ambrose, can you share why why it appears that some of the sports at the high school are missing, or did just nothing was purchased for them recently?
It's probably not. They probably, because there is a line item of just like athletic supplies, HHS, which might just be for sports that are not as cost center centric as say like football might be.
Okay. It was sparked to me, I didn't see girls soccer. So I was trying to figure out what happened to girls
Yeah,
soccer.
but there is just a line item, as you see at the very first, I think it's line 413, which just supplies for athletics. So it could just be in there, the days they buy what they need, as opposed to breaking it out as a separate. Final page shows you at the bottom the overall increase to the adjusted year is less than 1%, right? But to budget is 3.49% increase. So you can just see how much the expenses are growing in the current year. Are there other questions? Any expenditures?
Appreciate the thorough breakdown to better explain the situation.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's all stuff that we've talked about collectively over the last year and a half in various moments, but until you put it all into one place, you don't see it. Right? You don't see it as, if we've talked a number of times of the amount of tuitions that we're paying, transportation increases, but it's hard when you put it all on one paper.
Sure.
Is anybody in Passaic County not having these issues?
I think everybody in New Jersey is having these issues, to be fair. I mean, the 2% cap was instituted somewhere around 2010. I don't know exactly, but my guess is inflation was probably about 1% then. We're at a 30-year high on inflation. We have all of these other extraordinary costs that grew out of the pandemic in part, and in part just healthcare, who knows, I don't know. It's a whole nother conversation. I have my own opinions about that. But, you know, I think other districts may and may not, depending on who it is, just have more cushion where they can absorb some of that.
So we did receive some extra state aid this year, right?
We did. It's about $345,000. It was in the special ed categorical, I think. So what happens with state aid in part is, like last year we got an $899,000 increase in the equalization aid, which basically in its simplistic form is the state devises what they think an adequate budget would be. Then they decide how much the district can pay based on the wealth of the district, the equalized value of the property, and the income of the town. And the difference, theoretically, is state aid, right? Lit aid. We had a relatively large increase in the value of the town this year. So that's good and bad, right? Because then they're like, well, then you can pay more too. We got an increase in the special ed because our special ed costs have increased so much. So it's a double-edged sword because you're hoping to bring your special ed costs down, but with that will come the decrease in the aid, right? So it's concerning.
It also seems counterintuitive, right, Mr. Palouse, that Governor Murphy put forth $11 billion, the most money for public schools, and yet somehow we don't seem to have benefited our community from that increase.
You know, I'm kind of leaning towards what I always seem to gravitate towards, which is PCTI numbers. Am I accurate with saying that their increase in state aid was 9.4? Increase, not just their state aid.
I didn't see that, but that's what I heard.
So roughly how many students do they have, do you know? 3,800, we'll call it?
And it was closer.
There's more than that.
More than that?
They're in the
They're in the
4,000,
4,000.
44, yeah, they're over 4,000.
Yeah.
So my numbers aren't going to be accurate because I was using 3,800, but they were nice enough to give us a little bit of a, everybody in the county got $500 off?
$500, yes.
Okay, so humor me because my numbers are not accurate, but based on 3,800 students, if they gave $500 to every student, it's $1.9 million. I can redo the numbers really quickly, but 1.9 million they gave up.
It was $2 million,
Okay, so I'm off by 100,000 because
but I
I'm.
want to be clear that $2 million was given to them by the county. It didn't come out of their budget.
Right.
So although it came out of their budget, the county funded provided $2 million in another line item. I'm not sure exactly how it was
So
transferred.
they didn't lose, but even if
Correct.
they did, then they get another 9.4 million.
Correct.
And if you divide that by the same 38 that I used, it's an increase of $2,489 per student. So even if they did give up the 500, there's still a net positive per student, $1,989. But they're not, because that money didn't come out of their budget. So they basically got a net positive. So I think what we've been beating on for a long time now is not the education, it's the playing field that we are not on. They can continue to expand and pull more from every school in the county and keep hurting us more and more. Public education is in dire need right now, and somebody has to step up and do something, because I'm sure every town is suffering like this. And I asked the question before, is everybody going through this? And I'm assuming everybody is, except for PCTI. They get to continue to grow as we suffer. And, I don't know what the real answer is, but the answer is we have to continue to, and I appreciate everything that's been going on, and the fact that we did get a little bit of reprieve, but the county has to step up, the state has to figure out what's going on, because the more they get to grow, the more difficult it is going to be for every town to maintain public education. I just think it's something the public has to kind of understand that, we reiterate this all the time, but people have to be willing to step up and kind of support what we're trying to get at, is that we just want a level playing field. The county has to help out, the state has to help out, and PCTI might have to come to the table with a little bit more.
That's what I was gonna say, is that a final number, the 500?
So I can share that our Superintendent Association has been working with the county, meeting with the county administrator and with PCTI. That's where the $500 reduction really came from, was our conversations with them to help offset some of the costs, because we are paying significant costs higher than just about every county in New Jersey in terms of our per student contribution. So if we had asked them for a reduction, we had asked them for more than 500. We had actually asked them to get us under $10,000, because we're paying about $11,200 prior to this $500 reduction. They gave us the $500 reduction. We are hoping that now that they got a significant amount of state aid, that there will be an additional reduction. We are requesting that from our side. But it is something that we are continuing to pursue with PCTI and with the county.
May I add something?
Sure.
It just won't be in time for the budget submission.
Right.
Because this budget has to be submitted to the state by Monday the 20th. So I doubt anything's gonna happen.
And if it
next
did,
time.
it'd be like the after the fact from the
Right.
previous year.
Right, so just like they can issue an invoice if a state certifies a higher rate, where they issue a credit, it would just be a credit, I would think.
Point of reference, if I may. I believe there's 16 municipalities in Passaic County? Something like that, right?
16.
So if you take that 9.4 and spread that out through the 16 municipalities, that would give back to each municipality about $587,500 approximately.
Might be helpful.
And also just the $500, right? $500 tuition reduction times 195 students, that covers the transportation, just the transportation that we have to incur because of the increment, so it's not even a wash.
So I will share that for the average home valued at $381,026 in Hawthorne, if the board supports the budget as it's presented here, that would come out to be, with debt service, 3.81% increase, $205.40 per household, which is $17.11 a month. So all of these numbers might change slightly by the final budget submission. As you put it into the budget software and got to do an analysis of different ratios and things that are in there, it might move it, but it won't move it significantly, so.
So that was 3.81%
Overall,
with the
debt
cut
service.
of $1.4 million.
Correct, but taking the full healthcare adjustment.
Cheryl, I forgot to ask a question on page 5, line item 225, security officers. The number we're putting forth is 219. That is including what we currently have and no more, correct?
Currently with the second
The
person.
second person at
that we put in
LMS, at
a
the
couple
same
months ago.
rate that they're being paid now,
I think there's a slight
But
increase
it's-
that we project.
but around the same.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Very close.
essentially, yes.
Okay.
I really hope there's a lot of people watching at home.
Can you tell how many people are on there, Tamer?
5.
Okay, maybe they'll watch it in syndication after.
They tell 2 friends.
Yes, they'll say, go watch that budget hearing.
Riveting stuff.
Does anyone have any other questions either on the line item sheets or anything else?
I just want to add, for anyone who didn't get enough math and charts and graphs, if you're still yearning for more, I have it for you. Right? So I think Alex was nice enough to share the tax increases over the last 8 years. Did you provided the
Yes, I
average?
think Rick put it together, yes.
Okay, so I think you said the average was 2.513, that's what I have. That's over 8 years, knowing the 2% cap, but our average is 2.5, not too shabby. Based on the number I had, 3.79, we're at 3.81, it's really not a big difference. So we add a year in, 9 years, that brings our average to 2.655. That's a difference of 0.142. So I'm the last guy to ever be at the front of the line for raising taxes. But the track record that this board has had over the last 8 years to keep that number so close to the 2%, and to, in light of what we're facing, if this board does choose to take the healthcare adjustment and put forth the budget that's being discussed, I think it's still a hell of a job. That's my personal opinion, but I just wanted to share those numbers.
Thank you.
But if we don't, we have to make how much more cuts?
736,655.
I'd like to piggyback off Mr. Doyle's point. You know, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year spread of the past increases, and of those 8 years, there were 3 years where we didn't even go up to the full 2%, though we could have. We're not a board that asks for more than we need, despite that members have changed. You know, the spirit of the board has stayed the same. We ask for what we need. Last year, we asked the community for 1.86. Could have gone up to 2. We did not feel that was appropriate because it was not what was needed or recommended. So I think when you know, when it is brought to our attention that it is grave and that it is needed and that this is what needs to happen, and that even if this happens, cuts will still need to take place. You know, I just want the community to keep that in mind. Historically, we have only gone above 2 when needed, and we have stayed under 2. 21, 22, we were at 1.86. 2019, 2020, we were 1.74. 2017, 2018, we were 1.845. So we don't do the old, let's just go to 2 because we can and we'll have a little fluff. That's not who we are, that's not who we've ever been.
And just to, you know, not to beat a dead horse as far as numbers, the 3.81% tax increment includes cutting $1.4 million, right? And again, just big ticket items, right? Because there's a lot of numbers here, right? Walk away with those big ticket numbers. Health benefits has gone up is 25%, this coming year is 15%. Again, PCTI, the tuition, 11% over the last 5 years, 118% increment from 5 years ago. And school security has also gone up 65%. So, you know, big ticket items are those, 3.81% with cutting $1.4 million. You know, the numbers, you know, trying to make the numbers work, but beyond there's significant cuts, and you know, we're definitely going with that 2%. But again, those big ticket items are unsustainable.
So the last thing that I would like to say is, all of this is a projection. Nobody has a crystal ball to know exactly what will happen. And certainly last year, we could never have anticipated the power crisis that we felt. No one could have predicted the state health benefit increase that happened this year. You know, so we're hopeful, because we also didn't expect the year before a premium holiday. You know, so we're hoping for something to go our way next year. But I think we need to be prepared for what we see today. And I feel like this budget does that. So with that said, I do need to know, because this budget has to be submitted by Monday the 20th. So we will need a board meeting before the 21st. I think we would recommend the 14th, right? Because most people have their committees.
We're supposed to have committees
Sure.
next Tuesday, so we probably have that on our calendar already, right? So if we could do it next Tuesday as opposed to the 21st, because we have to submit the budget, we also have to.
We also have to submit the audit.
The audit.
By the 17th, which arrived today. So, yeah.
Right. So
we're going to have the audit from June of 22, the budget for 23, 24, and some items in 22, 23
next week
later.
prior to, so we can submit the audit by the 17th and the budget by the 20th, Monday the 20th.
So we would not have committee meetings on the 14th, we would have the regular board meeting,
Correct.
and then we would not have a meeting the following week.
Correct.
So the 21st is being moved?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
If
were
that works for
asking
everyone?
the board to move it to the 14th so that we can approve the audit, so we can submit the audit by the 17th and the budget by the 20th,
7 p.m.
7 p.m. And Bill Swisher will be here to present the audit.
I have to tell him, because the date I originally gave him was the 21st.
But again, we can make a motion to accept the
So,
budget
I mean,
presented.
we don't have on the agenda tonight as a work session, we didn't put any vote, but I think we probably can add a walk-in resolution if that's what the board wants, or we can just kind of take the temperature and see if this is something that everybody feels they can support after we've now had the opportunity to go through it. Or if there's not the support for it, then I need a very definitive either tax rate that we're going for or dollar amount that we're gonna cut. Because somewhere this has to be balanced by the end of the week, so it can be approved next Tuesday.
We would technically be voting on the 14th agenda.
Correct.
If we didn't do it.
But you'll vote on the 14th, but we need to know that what's
Yeah.
presented on the 14th is got everyone's support, or at least the majority's support.
And I think it's important to note that it doesn't have to be unanimous. It's a tough decision, like raising taxes, and if you know, if that's where, you know, if you're not comfortable with the number, then it is what it is. You know, it doesn't have to be unanimous, but definitely at least need a majority at that point.
Do we have a private session tonight? Oh, yeah, I see it on here, so it isn't.
Yeah, we can put it on there as a,
We reserve the
reserve the right in
Do we
case we
need to
felt
use
we
it?
needed
I
it.
don't know. Just
It's
ask.
up to the board. Can,
We can always come back into public and still take care of business.
Is there a specific reason to go into executive session?
That would be to discuss personnel and other issues that are
Security. and things like that.
security and.
I appreciate the time and effort that's been put into the spreadsheet. It's definitely given me clarity as to where my opinions were prior to walking in the room. It's hard decisions, I know and I understand, but I think the way you've outlined it makes it very clear and definitive as to what my position is on the matter. I'm not opposed to making a motion to proceed with calling a vote. The budget should put forward.
That would require a second.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Sotaro, seconded by Mr. Covino. Is there any discussion? I don't want to rush this on people, so if you would rather have fulfill the discussion first, we can put a hold on the motion. Is there any other discussion that you guys want to take place before? You don't feel ready? Is this side okay with moving forward with that?
I'm good.
Dr. Morrell?
Yeah.
Everyone else gave me like a,
Oh, I thought after a second I was waiting for Ms. Ambrose to do roll call.
but I said I want to make sure everybody's ready before we
Oh,
voted.
sorry, my apologies.
I don't want to rush the vote.
I zoned out.
That's
No
okay.
discussion.
That's, everyone else made eye contact with me, so
Oh,
I
sorry.
knew we were okay. Okay,
So
roll
do a
call,
roll call.
please.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
Yes.
Thank you all so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. I know it's challenging and it seems rushed, right, that we have to approve a budget next week, but the reality is state aid numbers come out Thursday afternoon, and that made us redo basically an entire budget by Saturday, so.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work and
It's
effort
really
that
my
gets put
pleasure,
into it.
but thank you so much for your time tonight. I think it was really productive.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, I agree, I just want to thank Cheryl for the work that she's put into this. I mean, it is sort of a strange process that you're developing a budget without having all the information, right? And now you put something together, now you're getting additional information, and you're trying to make all these pieces work. You know, I can tell you that she's worked really hard on this. I also want to thank, you know, our administrative team, because once we got the state aid numbers, we knew we had to, you know, make some hard decisions, and we had, you know, the administrators were great. They stopped what they were doing to make sure that we had everything in order, and we were making the right decisions at each level, and with the littlest or smallest impact on our kids, right? Because that's the priority, right? We don't want to impact our kids, and we want to do what's best for them going forward. So, you know, I just appreciate the amount of time that goes into this by Cheryl and, of course, our entire administrative team. So,
Since we voted on it tonight, we still have to change the meeting date?
yes, we still have to
We have
approve.
to- Oh, we have
Yeah,
to
this is
approve it.
just to
Move this
proceed
forward.
as outlined.
Got it.
This is not to submit.
You
So,
don't actually have to formally
yeah,
approve.
next week is a very formal submission of the budget to the county. It'll have all the numbers on there.
And we still have to approve the audit before
Yes.
next Friday,
Okay.
right, which we just found out, we just got today, so.
It's crazy time.
Appreciate the flexibility with all this.
Yes, thank you to the board, thank you to Ms. Ambrose. I mean, I've sat through many of these meetings. This was the most condensed. There are normally many more line items on these, and things are put in different places, but you took the time to really put things where they belong and do it a way that makes sense, and this is really great. We appreciate all of your time and commitment to the district. It's not an easy decision for anybody to make, but your confidence and your, you know, just being a shining light really helps us know that we're doing the right thing. Thank you. Does anybody think we need to go into private to discuss any of the results? Okay. Public be heard? Okay, there is no public here to be heard, so we will motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Morrell, seconded by Mr. Carr. Any discussion?
Good night, everyone.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Clavino?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
So we'll see you next Tuesday.